Good morning and welcome to my show. I'm your host, Danny Graham, and I both invite and encourage you to walk with me on the road to wisdom. Good morning, y'all. Come on, let's walk. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. We know what tomorrow is, Turkey Day. The day we should give thanks to everything that God has provided for us, our friends, our family, our job, our health. And Lord, thank you for the food that we're going to receive tomorrow. My favorite is dressing. My wife makes a good dressing, but my aunt makes an exceptional dressing. And I hope to get that today so I can enjoy it all day tomorrow. Well, without going into that, I want to go ahead and talk to you today. As you can see, the word of the day is deception. Deception is the word of the day. And I'm going to go ahead and get into what deception, the definition of deception, and that is the act of deceiving someone and being untruthful. Again, deception, the act of deceiving someone and being untruthful. The scripture about deception comes from the book of Psalms, the 100th chapter, the 7th verse. And it says, "No one who practices deceit shall dwell in my house." That's pretty strong. Lord says in the book of Psalms 100 chapter 7th verse that no one who practices deceit shall dwell in my house. So if you're lying, probably ain't gonna be in the house of the Lord. So let's make sure you check yourself on that if that's something that you regularly do. Now, I'm going to tell you a story about I'm reading. Now, lately, I've been in reading the Bible, and I've been in the Kings, the book, the First Kings and Second Kings. And Kings usually are the two books that talk about all the kings of Israel. Some are good, some are bad. Today, I'm going to focus on a good one. I'm going to focus on King Hezekiah. Now, King Hezekiah was the son of King Ahaz. King Ahaz. He was the 11th king of Judah, but he was evil. He did not listen to God's word. He practiced idolatry. He did all kind of crazy things. He aligned himself with Israel's enemies, the Assyrians, and especially a king of Assyria. He was aligned himself with it, and that king didn't treat him as a king. He made him subordinate, and he worked for that king just so he could keep his people out of trouble instead of standing up and believing in God's power and God's dominion and God's sovereignty. He just bowed down to this king and pretty much was his puppet. But when he died, the king, the king, the seat, the kingdom passed on to his son, who was Hezekiah, and Hezekiah was a godly man. All the things that his dad stood for, Hezekiah stood against. There were idolatry. There were different things of false gods and things posted up that God was did not approve of, and Hezekiah took all that down. All the things, all the false gods, all the things, the temples, all the statues, and all the likenesses of these false gods. Hezekiah did away with all that, and he believed in God. He followed God's ways, and everywhere he went, God blessed Hezekiah. He was very, very prosperous. Well, one thing that Hezekiah did that his dad didn't do, that he went against the current king that was sitting in Assyria. And that king name was, and it's hard for me to pronounce. So please bear with me. I'm going to pronounce it the best I can. But that king name was Sennacherib. King Sennacherib was the king of Assyria. And pretty much Hezekiah said, "Look, I'm not doing all the things that my dad did to the former king, your dad, or his descendant. I'm following God." So what he did was send his army and took out all uh, of Hezekiah's allies, and he was after Jerusalem, where Hezekiah was based at. So after taking out all the Hezekiah's allies and had them surrounded, he sent his spokesman. And this is where deception is going to come in. A lot of times in life, people will tell us half truths, or they'll tell us a part of stuff, things that sound good, that's going to entice us. And if we're not careful and we don't pick apart, we use our brain instead of our heart. Don't use our brain instead of our heart. I'm going to say it one more time. If we don't use our brain instead of our heart, we will be bamboozled and fall for the okey doke. And a lot of times, if we don't have a strong support system, or we don't tap into the ultimate support system, which is God, we will fall for the okie doke and be bamboozled. And this is what I'm going to tell you in the story that where deception comes in. So this King Sarib, I'm going to try to pronounce it again. Senior Charib sent his spokesman, this fast talking snake oil salesman, whatever. And he told Hezekiah's men, Hezekiah wasn't there, Hezekiah was at the kingdom, but his men was there at the wall. And he was telling them, look, let me in. I got several reasons why you should let me in. And so he went to tell them four main things he pointed out. Some is truth, some is lies. Same way we deal with things now. Sometimes people tell us some truths that we know is true, but then they'll slide in something, a lie to make it sound good, to make us be like, especially if they are trying to intimidate us or trying to overpower us, or a urban street terminology. They're trying to take our heart, seeing if our heart is pumping Kool-Aid or not. They'll tell us things to try to intimidate us. And this guy was very good at intimidating people because he would take some truths and he would take some lies and mix it up in there and made it sound like the truth was a lie and a lie was the truth. And sometimes if you're not strong, if you're faint of heart, you're going to fall for okie doke. And this story, part of it, they fell for okie doke. But the first thing this spokesman for the king, King Sharib, King Senior Sharib, from the Assyrian king, he said was Egypt was useless. It's a useless ally, and they would not be able to help them. And that was the truth. Because at that time they had defeated everybody. The only king that wasn't defeated was Jerusalem, King Hezekiah, because God was with Hezekiah. Hezekiah was favored by God. But it goes back to what I always say: teaching and testing. God was always with Hezekiah. He provided ways where there was no ways for Hezekiah. But guess what? In this particular instant, he was testing. He was testing Hezekiah to see what he was going to do. So he allowed the Assyrian army to do everything. He allowed them to take the victory. He allowed them to take all of Hezekiah's people to test him to see whether or not he was going to rely on him, or what he's going to do like the rest of the kings and the previous kings and disobey him and do their own thing and not rely on his power and his strength. So the first thing he told Hezekiah's men was, you don't have any allies. You're out here by yourself. So you're not going to get any help. We didn't defeat all your friends, all your allies. You are in trouble, so you might as well open the door. Second thing he told them was that they had angered their God by destroying all the other false gods. And that had pissed off the God, because all the gods they destroyed was sticking together and on their side, and it pissed off the God, their so-called God, and that's why we have been able to take out all your friends, come here and knock on your door, about to overpower you. Now that was a lie. That was not true. Like I said earlier, God was testing Hezekiah to see whether or not he was going to come to him or do his own thing like the other kings in the past. This was a test. God allowed this to happen. He was still favoring Hezekiah, but he was testing him to see whether or not he learned his lesson to have faith in him or to do his own thing and fail. Third thing that this spokesperson from the Assyrian army said was, he said that the army was too weak to fight them. And Hezekiah's army was too weak. That's the reason why. And that was the truth. Hezekiah was no match, because the Assyrian army was, I think, over 185,000 strong. Hezekiah's army was nowhere near that capacity. So that was true. So like you see, he's mixing the truth and he's mixing lies in it. But it's so overwhelming now, and Hezekiah's men are so scared now, they believe in everything this man is saying. And the fourth thing he said was that their own God told them to attack them. And from their point, it was like, what else could it be? Because in the past, King Hezekiah did everything God told him to do. He was obedient and he was prospering. Everything was going their way. But now all of a sudden, Hezekiah must have done something to anger God, and now God was coming here to punish them. So this guy used their own God against them, and they were so scared and afraid, and they was just so stressful, they started tearing their clothes. And Hezekiah's men was so nervous, and pretty much that spokesman took his heart. He took their heart and he saw it was pumping Kool-Aid, and he was drinking the Kool-Aid and just running amok on them. So they ran back to Hezekiah and they reported to King Hezekiah and said, look, this man said ABC 1, 2, 3, and if you don't listen to this, they're surely going to destroy us. Prior to this, Hezekiah tried to give this king of Assyria, his name is Shabib. He tried to give him gold and silver, but the king didn't want that. He wanted to take Hezekiah. He wanted to take all of Israel. He wanted to take Jerusalem and make Hezekiah be subservient to him like Hezekiah's father was. But Hezekiah wasn't hearing that. Now, Hezekiah, after hearing all this, he was stressed out too, and he was scared. He started tearing his clothes just like his people as he was stressed out. Oh, Lord, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do. But what he did that other kings in the past didn't do is that he went and he talked to God. There was a prophet by the name of Isaiah who was the best prophet. According to the Bible, he was the greatest of all the prophets. And he sent word, one of his men, he had him disguised, to go talk to Isaiah and ask for what God wanted him to do. How was God going to give him out of this? And God was pleased by this because in the past, most of the kings did things their own way, didn't come to and consult him. All the wonderful things he did, all the miracles he did, all the times he bailed them out of hot water, all the times he protected them, they still worship false gods, and this angered God. But Hezekiah was not like those other kings. He went to God for conference. He went to God to ask what to do. God sent word to Isaiah for him, don't be afraid. And God does this to the people that he's following because it reassures you. When you hear something from God, from someone that you know is directly connected to God, and God said, don't be afraid, God uses that phrase to empower us, to make you strong, to build your confidence up and say, okay, God said he got it. All I got to do is be obedient. And that's what he did. And after that, God is pretty much destroyed. He pretty much fought Hezekiah's battle. He made it so there was a conflict in another part of the world, and and the Syrian king had to divert his people to go there and handle that. But the Syrian king still thought he had stuff under control. He sent a letter to Hezekiah saying, look, when I get done with this mess over here, I'm coming back and I'm doing exactly what I said. I'm taking your kingdom and I'm going to make you do whatever I tell you to do. You're going to jump. When I say jump, you're going to say aha. But God had another plan for that. God had allowed this Assyrian king to do all this stuff because he was testing Hezekiah to see whether or not he was going to be obedient. And Hezekiah passed the test. Hezekiah was obedient. God tested him and he passed the test, and he taught Hezekiah that in times of trouble, times when you feel like your back is up against the wall, I got you. That's what God does. He has us. We still have to be taught and have to be tested because God tests us to see whether or not we're going to listen to and adhere to his word. And once we learn that lesson, he strengthens us. And there's going to be, every time there's going to be another test, we're going to be that much stronger to be able to pass the test. But if you don't pass the first test, you can't pass the second, third, fourth, or whatever. But that's what God does. Whether you favor it or whether you're not favorite, God is going to test you. And if you pass the test, you're going to learn that lesson, and you can be that much more prepared for a future test, and it's also future blessings. The harder the test, the bigger the blessings. And the bigger the blessings, the more the devil's going to come, the more the enemy's going to come at you because he don't want you to get that blessing. Because when you get that blessing, it's going to reinforce your connection and your relationship with God, and you're going to be that much stronger. He don't want that. So just remember, the harder it is for you in life, that's probably going to be the harder, the better, and bigger the blessing is. Just remember that. So, get back into the story. Hezekiah prayed to God and what we're going to do. And God said, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to handle it. And God sent some kind of virus, some kind of sickness, and wipe out the entire army. 185,000 men died mysteriously. And the Syrian king, the issue he had with him went away. And Hezekiah ruled the rest of his life peacefully. I think Hezekiah, if I remember correctly, ruled about 55 years. He was one of the great kings during that time when there was a lot of crappy kings. And unfortunately, his son that followed him was one of the crappy kings. He did a lot of evil stuff, but that's a story for another day. Mainly what the story is talking about, deception. If you can remember what I told you, that spokesman for the Syrian king army, he did use a lot of deception. He used some truth and he used some lies. And that's what a lot of people do to today. And that's what the enemy going to do to you. He's going to offer you something that's going to look so good and some is going to be true. But guess what? If it's going to lead to sin, it's always going to be a cost, an unforeseen cost. a deception that you did not account for. And if you're not 16 sharp, you're going to end up on the short end of the stick, just like Eve did. The enemy offered that apple to her. Yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to be just as powerful as God, and see what happened. And then Adam was not strong enough to be strong enough and to stay away from that. He fell into that same trap. So guess what? There's truth. Sometimes the truth be interwoven with deception, but you got to make sure that you be still. You listen. You ask for guidance. You ask, Lord, which direction to go. Left or right. Forward, stand still, or take 2 steps back to avoid something. God already has the plan. He's not trying to do any. He doesn't make mistakes. He knows what's going to happen. He's just going to see whether or not you're going to ask him for his help to guide you through this maze. God knows how to get out of any maze. God created the maze. There's nothing he can't solve, nothing he can't do, nothing. It is just nothing. We can't even comprehend his awesomeness, his power, his omnipotence. It's just something that our mind cannot handle it at this stage, or probably not at any stage. So that's just my word today and my 2 cents on this word on deception. Just make sure in life there are going to be a lot of things that are going to deceive you. All I ask you is just make sure if it's something that you really don't understand, something that sounds really too good to be true, make sure that you stop and you comb through, you analyze, and make sure that is the deception, that you can identify deception and avoid it at all costs. Now, the quote of the day for deception, I think I got to go back here and read it. And the quote for deception is, "A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on." I think Winston Churchill said that. But I'm going to say it one more time. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. And you know that. Social media, boy. You can hear so much crazy stuff. And by the time the lie gets half around to 10, 15 people, before you find the truth, and people a lot of times don't believe the truth. The lie sounds more believable than the truth. That's dangerous. But that's the world we live in today. If this is the first time you've ever seen my channel, I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel. Also hit the notification bell because I don't want you to miss any material that I upload here in the future. I'm going to actually give me a thumbs up because that helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, I'm going to ask you to leave me a comment. Whether you're not feeling what I'm saying or whether you are feeling what I'm saying, your comments are important to me because I definitely read them and I want to get back to you. Also, watch my video in its entirety from start to finish. I hope that you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I'll see you on the backside of it. Friday, I have my video. I think that'll be my 99th video, and next Monday will be my 100th video. I want you all to be here to celebrate that with me. Like I said, have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. Have a safe day. Be blessed, and I will talk to you on Friday. Peace.